Buenos dias. Welcome to Geometry. I'm Mr. McWhorter, and I'm excited to start showing you how to do some problems with the theorems that I introduced you to in the last lesson. So here are the theorems that we talked about. First, we have the definition. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral in which both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. Then our first theorem showed that opposite sides of the parallelogram are congruent. And then we proved that opposite angles are congruent. And then we discussed how consecutive angles in a parallelogram are supplementary, meaning they add up to 180 degrees. And then last we talked about how the diagonals bisect each other. So this is the midpoint of each one of these diagonals. So how are we going to use those to answer some questions? Given parallelogram ABCD, what is the length of AB? So this is AB, so that's what we want to find out. What is the length of AB? Well, which one of these theorems or definitions are we going to use? Well, it looks like 12 is opposite of segment AB. So we're going to use the opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. And if they're congruent, that means they have the same length. So that means that the measure of segment AB is going to be 12. Given parallelogram PQRS, what is the measure of angle Q? So what is the measure of this angle? Which theorem or definition can we use? Well, we have that angle S is 40 degrees, and we know that opposite angles are congruent. So we're going to use opposite angles in a parallelogram are congruent. If these two angles are congruent, that means that this angle is also 40 degrees. Therefore, the measure of angle Q equals 40 degrees. Given parallelogram ABCD and angle D is 145 degrees, what is the measure of angle C? What theorem can we use about that? These are not opposite angles, these are consecutive angles. So let's use the theorem about consecutive angles. It says that they're supplementary. That means that the measure of angle D, which is 145, plus the measure of angle C have to equal 180 degrees. So I can just subtract 145 degrees from each side, and I'm going to get the measure of angle C is equal to 35 degrees. So that angle is 35. Given the diagram of parallel NIKE, what is the value of x? Let's see, what theorem can I use here? I've got EN is 12 and KI is 2x minus 4, and these are opposite sides, and I know that opposite sides are congruent. That will help me. So I'm going to use the fact that opposite sides of a parallel are congruent. That means they have the same measure. That means that 12 is equal to 2x minus 4. And now I just need to use my illustrious algebra skills to get x by itself. So x is multiplied by 2 and it has a 4 subtracted. Easier to get rid of subtraction and addition before we get rid of multiplication. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides because that's the opposite of subtracting 4. And that will make this cancel out. And I get 12 plus 4 is 16 equals 2x. Now what's the opposite of multiplying by 2? Because 2x means 2 times x. So the opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Because 2 divided by 2 is 1. And that gives me just x. Over here, 16 divided by 2 is 8. So I get x equals 8. Next, please. Given the diagram of parallelogram ABCD, what is the length of a BC? So we need to find the length of BC. Well, in order to find the length of BC, I'm going to have to figure out what x equals. And I'm going to have to use one of these theorems. And the one I'm going to have to use is the only one that has to do with side lengths, because that's all we're given. We're given side lengths. So I'm going to have to use the opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. So I need to set side BC, the length of side BC, equal to the length of side AD. So 3 plus 5x has to equal 12 plus 2x. So in order to find the length of BC, I need to solve for x, and then I'm going to need to plug in and find out what 3 plus 5x equals. So I need to solve this equation. Well, I have 5 x's on the left and 2 x's on the right. I'd like to have all my x's on one side of the equal sign. So I'm going to subtract these 2 x's off both sides of the equation, because that'll get all the x's off of this side. So then I got 3 plus 5x minus 2x is 3x equals 12. Now I do have 3 plus 3x over here. This 3 is added on to the 3x, so I can just subtract 3 from both sides of the equation to get rid of that, which leaves me with 3x equals 12 minus 3 is 9. And now 3 times x, I need to divide by 3, because 3 divided by 3 is 1, and then I get x equals 9 divided by 3 is 3. Now resist the temptation to say that you're done here, because it doesn't say what is the value of x, it says what is the length of BC. So the length of BC is 3 plus 5x. So that's 3 plus 5 times, we just figured out that x equals 3. So that is 3 plus 5 times 3 is 15. So the length of BC is 18. Ding! Given the diagram of parallelogram ABCD, what is the value of x? So this one we just need to find x. What theorem are we going to use? Well, we have 2 theorems that talk about angles. Which one could we use? We could set angle A equal to angle C using this theorem that says that opposite angles are congruent. But we could also use, we could say that 103 plus 50 plus 3x equals 180 degrees. We could use either one of these theorems. So I'll show you both. First, I will use this theorem. Opposite angles are congruent. So I'm going to say that 50 plus 3x is equal to the opposite angle, which is 86 minus x. So I have 3x over here and a negative x over there. So if I add x to both sides, it will cancel the x's off of this side, and I will get 50 plus 4x equals 86. I want to get the 4x alone first, so I can subtract 50 from both sides of the equal sign. And then I get 4x equals 36. Divide both sides by 4, and I get x equals 9. So let's see if we get the same answer using this theorem. This theorem says that consecutive angles are supplementary. So I could say that here's two consecutive angles. I can say that these two have to add up to 180. So 103 plus 80, what did I do there? 86 minus x has to equal 180 degrees. Well, 103 plus 86 is 189. So 189 minus x equals 180. And can you see that x has to be 9? 180 minus 9 equals 180. So x has to be 9. Kind of cool that we get the same answer using either one of these theorems. Given the diagram of parallelogram ABCD, what is the measure of angle C? Well, if you look at it, this is the same problem we just did. And we just found out that x equals 9. So all we got to do is plug in right here. So the measure of angle C is 86 minus x. That's going to be 86 minus 9. And that equals 77. So the measure of angle C is 77 degrees. Given this diagram of parallelogram ABCD, what is the value of x? So I have two consecutive angles here. So I'm going to need to use the theorem that has consecutive angles. So it says that consecutive angles add up to 180 degrees. So I need to add these two together. 30 plus 5x plus 15 plus 10x equals 180. I need to combine like terms. I've got 30 and 15 over here. That makes 45. And then I have 5x plus 10x, and that is plus 15x. And that equals 180. So I need to subtract 45 from both sides. Remember, my goal is to get x by itself. So we got 15x equals 180 minus 45, that's 135. Now 15 times x, I need to do the opposite of 15 multiplying by 15, which is dividing by 15. And I get x equals 135 divided by 15. 135 divided by 15 is 9. So x equals 9. Now x isn't always going to equal 9. It just happens to equal 9 a couple times on this video. So don't just think x always equals 9. Given the diagram of parallelogram ABCD, what is the measure of angle C? So I need to find out what's the measure of angle C. Well, according to all these theorems, I know a couple of things. I know that the measure of angle C is going to be equal to the measure of angle A. So I'm going to write that down real quick. Measure of angle C is equal to the measure of angle A, and that is using this theorem, that opposite angles are congruent. Then I'm going to need to use this theorem, the consecutive angles theorem, to figure out what actually x equals, because I'm going to have to add these two together and set them equal to 180. Then I'm going to have to solve for x. Then I'm going to have to plug in to find the measure of angle A, to plug in here so that I can find out how many degrees angle A is, because that's going to be the same as angle C. So these are the two theorems that I'm going to use. First, I need to use this theorem, which says that consecutive angles are supplementary. So that means that 8x plus 33 plus 7x plus 27 equals 180. 8x plus 7x is 15x plus 33 plus 27 is 60, and that equals 180. So I'm going to subtract 60 from both sides, and I get 15x equals 120. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 15. So x equals 120 divided by 15. 120 divided by 15 is 8. So x equals 8. Am I done? No, because we need to know what is the measure of angle C. Well, I don't know the measure of angle C yet. I do know what x equals. If I know what x equals, then I can find out what is the measure of angle A. So the measure of angle A is 8x plus 33. Well, if the measure of angle C is the same as the measure of angle A, then the measure of angle C also equals 8x plus 33. So now I just need to plug an 8 in for x. So measure of angle C is 8 times x plus 33, and x equals 8. So the measure of angle C is 8 times 8 is 64 plus 33, and that is 97 degrees. Given parallelogram ABCD and AC equals 28, so from here all the way to here is 28, and AE is 3x minus 7, so AE is just from here to here. Find the value of x. Well, if I know that AE is 3x minus 7, what does that tell me about CE? Which theorem am I going to use? Well, clearly the only one that has anything to do with diagonals of a parallelogram is the last one. And it says that they bisect each other, which means that it's cut into two congruent segments. So that means that CE is also 3x minus 7. So that means that 3x minus 7 plus another 3x minus 7 is equal to 28. 3x plus 3x is 6x. Minus 7 makes minus 14. That equals 28. I need to add 14 to both sides of the equal sign. And I get 6x equals, embarrass myself by using the calculator, 28 plus 14 is 42. Then divide both sides by 6, and we get x equals 7. I hope you enjoyed going over some problems with parallelograms, and I really hope that you learned something today. I love geometry, I love math, and I'll talk to you later.